Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So as usual today, being the last day of the week, let's go over Tesla, see what happened in the market, exactly what we can expect going into next week. And yeah, all that good stuff. So if you guys enjoy, if you find these videos useful, informative, helpful, whatever, don't forget to be subscribed, number one. Number two, don't forget to hit that like button, guys. It does help quite a bit, but let's just get right into it. So number one, I want to say, where are all those people that were telling me we're going to run up on Austin opening up? Like I said, it doesn't matter. You can't use your emotions in the market as little as possible, and people were using their emotions. They were. I mean, for good reason. They were. I was excited. We were excited. They were excited for the Berlin and Austin in this case opening, but specifically Austin. Just what was it, yesterday, and it was amazing. Like I watched it. I'm super excited. But again, you have to take your emotions out of the way, right? It's number one. It's the market doesn't care. Like it just doesn't care. It's already news. It's not new, right? We already knew it's opening. It's nothing new. And number two, the run-up we had earlier was, believe it or not, I don't think it was related to Berlin, like very little. It might have helped a little bit, but I really don't think it was related to Berlin at all, or very, very little. It's just a coincidence in my opinion, because the whole market was running up, not just Tesla. So that was just a coincidence, and people try to put two and two together. It just doesn't make sense, which is why I was saying how I don't think we're going to run up on, Austin opening. It just doesn't make sense. It's nothing new. But regardless, we are still inside this kind of little channel. It's like it's a weird channel. I'm not really sure where to put the line, but on the 4 hour, it makes a little bit more sense. You can see somewhere around this general area. So essentially, if we fall below, if we fall below 1020, which I do think we will. I do think we will fall below 1020, and I do think we're going to drop further. Now, I do want to state that I did buy shares today. I actually bought 100 shares today at like 1032, something like that. So I am starting to build my position on Tesla because number one, I don't think we'll drop below 1,000. That's number one. And even if it do, like Tesla's the one stock where I don't mind bag holding, because I don't just hold the shares, I play the shares. Sometimes if you run up insanely, I'll sell, but usually I'll sell like weekly calls on the shares. I still have cash, of course. I'm going to be selling, I'm still going to be selling weekly puts, and I'm going to be making premium on both sides of the trade, while then potentially also, potentially selling the shares if we end up getting a massive run up. So essentially, this is what I'm expecting going into next week or two, roughly. Personally, I think Monday. I really think it's okay. I do think it'll happen Monday, Tuesday at the latest, in my opinion, but probably Monday. I do think we're going to drop. I do think we're going to break out of this little kind of like pattern that we're in right here. You can see. I do think we're going to drop from it. I don't think we're going to rally too much from this. As you can see, we had like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 touch points already. And I think this 5th touch point right here, I do think it's going to break down and go under. I really do. And that's going to lead us down to this gap fill. Now, again, a lot of people I've seen keep saying that, oh, the gap is filled, the gap is filled. Guys, the gap is not filled until we touch about 110. Like, I don't know where people get this from. I don't know why even like people that I consider to be like pretty seasoned traders, they keep saying the gap is filled, the gap is filled. But I honestly think they were saying that because they were entering the position on Tesla already, and they kept going down from when they entered, like all the way up here. And then they're like, yeah, the gap is filled. They're trying to get like confirmation bias almost in that way, and trying to like get themselves built up on hopium or something. I don't know. It's not filled. It's not filled until it touches 1010 roughly. So I don't know where people get that from, but it's not filled until it touches 1010. It could be a few cents off, but like, very, very as close as possible. At max, like $1, maybe $2 off. But ideally, you want to at least touch it, if not go even further below, which I do think it'll happen. Actually, I do think we're going to go to 1010, and I actually think we will go a bit further below. I think we'll actually touch very close to 1,000 because gaps tend to overfill, whether it's upwards or downwards. For instance, if it's up here, there's a decent chance that it'll overfill slightly and go slightly past the gap and then drop down, and then vice versa with gaps on the way down. I do think it overfills. In this case, on the way down, so we'll go a bit past 1010, probably bounce between 1010 and 1,000. I think personally, not financial advice, will be an absolute great position or area to build some shares up for the trade, if you're trading, of course, or if you're buying for long term, doesn't matter. But if you're buying long term, honestly, I think it's going to go lower than this as well. But this is just a trade, in my opinion. But essentially, what I'm expecting is that I am expecting a drop to the low thousands, very low thousands. Be surprised if it breaks too far under 1,000. Like, I really don't think it'll go under 997 roughly. Not yet, at least. And I do think we're going to bounce off of this at the very least, come back up, test this gap at like this 1060-ish area, and maybe if we're lucky, even touch this 1090 gap. This 1090 gap, I'm not gonna lie, is a little bit of a stretch because in order to fill this gap up here, we have to break through some serious resistance up here. And I just don't think we have the momentum based on the way Tesla's been trading. It's possible. It is definitely possible, but I wouldn't like be super surprised if we don't also fill this gap yet or anytime soon. Like I do think this will get filled eventually, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. But again, it's very possible it does. But at the very least, the first gap I'll be looking forward to fill is this 10, one around 1060, 1058, something like that, right over here. Pretty much today's gap actually, which is exactly at 1057.5 roughly. So that's the first thing I'm looking for after we bounce off of the low thousands. And after that, we will of course revisit and see how Tesla's moving and kind of figure out if there's any potential for us to go all the way up here to fill this as well. But that's the first thing I'm looking at. So if we drop below to this low thousands area, I will be personally picking up more shares. But that's what I'm currently seeing at the very moment. So looking at the RSI in the 1 hour, let's take a look at the 1 hour. So it's actually starting to get a little bit better, in my opinion. It is starting to get a little bit better. I do think there's still going to be more downside, but it is starting to show a slight bullish divergence. In this case, it's the opposite of what I was talking about before. This is a good sign, where the RSI is starting to slowly make higher lows. I mean, this isn't really a low yet, but there's a very high chance, in my opinion, this will be a higher low. I do think once we drop to this low thousands, I think the RSI will probably come down to like maybe 32, 31. I don't think it'll drop lower than this 28, 29 area that we have over here. I think it'll come down to like 30 roughly. And I'll set essentially a higher low, even though the stock is technically setting a lower low on the chart itself, right, on the 1 hour as we keep falling. So that's a bullish divergence, which is the opposite of what I was talking about in a bearish divergence, where we kept going higher on the chart, but this RSI kept going lower, right? So that's a good sign, which tells me that we are going to probably drop down, probably bounce, probably fill some gaps up here, and then we'll of course revisit that once we get back to this area up here sometime next week. Probably I would guess maybe mid to end of next week. I also did predict that today's gonna be a sideways day. I can't remember if I said that in the video or not, but I did say I did think today will be a sideways day. I didn't expect to drop 3% in all honesty, but I did expect it to be sideways from just in general. So the initial drop is just the morning drop. I guess, it was more of a sell the news in my opinion for Austin. And then we just essentially, it was a snooze fest of a day, very low volume, just pretty much straight sideways, had pretty much nothing happening. The one good thing to note is the fact that the drop is on substantially lower volume, which, in a way, it's a good thing. It's more of a good than a bad thing in my opinion. But again, just through technical analysis, I'm still expecting a drop to lower thousands. If we don't, that's fine. I already have enough shares to, to play with. I don't mind too much, but I will buy more if we drop and fill this gap, which I'm still expecting. Looking at the daily, taking a look here very quickly, you can see not the most beautiful candle for bulls. It's just a solid red candle, pretty much just showing just pure selling pressure throughout, similar to this candle almost, and not really this candle, but more of this candle over here. Just pure selling pressure throughout the day. Very little buying pressure. It's a Friday, like I said, usually bearish on Fridays. Mondays tend to usually follow Fridays, not always, but it often rhymes with Fridays, so that's why I expect Monday to be a red, which also kind of backs up my reasoning for the gap fill and the low thousands push, which also fulfills this fairly bearish pattern that we are currently consolidating in. So there's a lot of things pointing to downside in my opinion for Monday. I would be really surprised if we don't, and if we have a green Monday, like that would surprise me, but we'll see what happens, of course. But that's essentially what I'm currently seeing, guys. So one thing I actually do want to point out, there is a fairly bullish pattern setting up for Tesla on the daily, which you can see is going to be this head and shoulders, bullish head and shoulders, an inverse head and shoulders, where we have the drop here and then we ran up. So this is the left shoulder right here. We have the head, right? This whole area is pretty much the head. And then I think we're going to drop back down. Like, again, I really wouldn't be surprised if we drop back down to this teal line. So like the low 900s, which then would develop the right shoulder. And that's a bullish pattern. And I do think this will be like a very nice, strong bounce off this teal line, roughly. Like in this case, it'll be like the very low 900s, mid to low 900s roughly. And that will set up the second shoulder, and then I think that will be a very bullish pattern. And if that happens and it holds, I think that might give us a good potential to start discussing potentially actually running up to all-time highs from there, which I wouldn't be surprised to see. But that's essentially what I'm seeing, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. Of course, our side, of course, is still pointing straight down. You can see the MACD starting to cross bearish, starting to show a little bit of red here as well. So a lot of signs are pointing to the fact that there's going to be overall more downside, even though we're going to have some bounces in my opinion. I do think overall the trend is going to be downwards for the next couple weeks, maybe until earnings, something like that, majority of the month, which sucks because usually this month is a good month for Tesla, but not always, of course. Can't always be a good month. But that's essentially what I'm seeing, guys. So let me know what you think down below. If you guys enjoy, don't forget to hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed, all that good stuff. And I'll see you guys back on Monday. So until then, have a good weekend. Peace.